So I've been watching a lot of Phineas and Ferb. In preparation for, you know, more Phineas and Ferb. Summer is starting right now. Summer is starting right now. And every once in a while, you'll reach a clip show episode, an episode which is largely made up of old fan favorite clips from the show, cobbled together with some sort of framing device like an awards show or a machine which systematically pulls your backstory from your head.
With the help of our exciting but potentially lethal memory extraction technology, all of your most deeply suppressed memories will appear right on this screen.
Now, I wanted to rewatch the whole series before I started with the new season, and I found myself kind of split on whether I had to watch these episodes. Because, like, on the one hand, there is new content in there.
And this time, I made it!
I've heard that
Every
before.
day the same
Not that
thing.
girl again.
You'll see!
It is enjoyable enough to watch. I like the top 10 best voted Phineas and Ferb songs. I certainly wouldn't mind hearing them again. There's a lot of bangers in there.
And when I do, you're gonna be busted.
This isn't a bad experience by any means, but it does feel a little redundant.
Please enjoy music video number 2.
All hail Queen Wahine!
And when the other option is skipping it and continuing to watch old Phineas and Ferb episodes that I haven't rewatched in years, like, yeah, I think I'd prefer the latter option. And it's not like these episodes offer nothing. I mean, my name is Doof and you'll do what I say, whoop whoop, will be stuck in my head until the end of time. But at the end of the day, we can all sit down and agree that these aren't actually Phineas and Ferb episodes, right? Like, if after this years-long hiatus, they finally brought back the show with much hype and anticipation, and it turns out the only thing they did is just make more clip show episodes, we would all feel scammed, right? Even if there were some cute new character moments in the framing devices, that would not be acceptable. You didn't bring back the show, you're just playing the greatest hits again with a new coat of paint and hoping the nostalgia will be enough to carry it. But if that's all you were gonna do, then like, what are we doing here? Why go through the effort of bringing something back if you have no new ideas? Let's talk about Ninjago, the Lego Ninja show, which was a certified staple of Cartoon Network in the 2010s.
Let's do the Ninjago! Lego Ninjago!
The show had a wildly successful 2-season run, which followed the shenanigans of these color-coded goofballs, which tapped directly into a deep desire that all little boys have to learn martial arts. But you know, the fictional, magical type of martial arts, which isn't really that difficult to learn, isn't all that violent, and whose main defining factor is that it makes you look really cool.
J.K.Z.
Not only was the show successful, but it also moved a lot of product for Lego.
You must build a steak truck.
So when the initial 2-season run was winding down to be spiritually succeeded by this show about, like, magical animal warriors,
Legends of Chima, the show about animals.
someone behind the scenes went, wait a second, why are we ending our cash cow? No one's forcing us to stop betting on a sure thing. Quick, everybody, let's reboot this thing. And so they did.
Get ready for the new hard-hitting episodes of Ninjago.
Ninjago Rebooted was Ninjago's 3rd season. It had a robot theme going for it. It was to focus on Zane, everyone's favorite autistically coded robot ninja, aka Nindroid, who was very cool because he could control ice.
Ice!
And was very kind because he was, in fact, the most human one on the team. I think this was a good move. Everybody likes Zane. He's the heart of the team, the little brother who must be protected at all costs, but who counterintuitively protects others at all costs.
Come on, it's Zane!
Plus, him being a robot gives you such a solid hook for the new season. That's the main selling point right there. It was just a solid marketing decision all around. But if you need to fill out a whole season plot line based on a character who doesn't really have any personal flaws, like, what are you supposed to do with him? Give him a love interest. Give my boy a love interest. Enter the subject of our video today.
Welcome to Borg Industries. I'm Pixal.
Pixal is another robot character who is introduced to fall in love with Zane. That's it. I mean, that's the bulk of the pitch right there. For the rest of it, she is a robotic assistant who works for the bad guys before gaining sentience and learning how to manage her newfound emotions and agency against a world-ending crisis, which she bizarrely finds herself in the middle of. And from there, it gets a little fuzzy. She gets demoted to Team AI for a little bit before just randomly graduating to main character status. Maybe. She's around sometimes she's just not even there. But at the end, they definitely decide like, yes, for sure, she's a main character. Before they reboot the show and they just shelve her completely for 2 seasons before they decide they do want to work her back into being a part of the main cast until they change their mind again. Now, what I'm saying here might not sound interesting. And in many ways, you would be right. It isn't. Pixel is a pretty flat character with some pretty thin writing most of the time and a very shaky relationship to the team she is ostensibly supposed to be a part of.
I'm part of the team. I am.
She is perpetually at risk of falling out of the narrative altogether because she doesn't have enough of a presence to warrant her inclusion most of the time. A lot of this is down to the poor and occasionally sexist writing that she's historically been subject to and just a lack of planning for the show overall. But despite all that, Pixel is my favorite character.
Pixel, you are amazing.
I am a certified Pixel stan. I can show you my credentials if you like. The first Ninjago video I posted to this channel was a Pixel hype AMV. You can now find it re-uploaded to my archive channel. It was the last one that I chose to re-upload because I always wanted it to sit at the top of the page. One of the first videos with my face on the channel, I made my own makeshift face paint so I could do cosplay as I scrolled through my photoshopped edits of Pixel. I cannot unsee Grandma Pixel. Every year for my birthday, my roommates and I would try to make a cake that looks like Pixel with varying degrees of success. This is worse. This is worse. I will take any reasonable excuse to bring her up in discussion, and I refuse to commit to spelling her name as an acronym, both because I think it humanizes her as she deserves, and because it would just be such a time sink. Do you know how often I type this girl's name?
And I'm one of the few people in the world who needs to type verb on a regular basis on their phone. Every single time I try it, it gives me Verb Brigade.
I obviously see something in this shell of a character type which gets me invested, even if it is just headcanons pulled from very small scraps of show content. But that's part of what made Dragon's Rising Season 3 such a weird watch experience for me.
I am not sure how I got in this weird place.
Let's be real. I will gladly eat up any content with my girl that I can get, especially with the show's on-off relationship with her. You never know when you're gonna get to see her again. I should be extracting all sorts of viably questionable headcanons from just the sheer amount of screen time they decided to finally afford to Pixel in Season 3.
Pixel, oh, you're back.
But this recent influx of content for her felt off somehow. I don't know, like they didn't mischaracterize her by any means, but I didn't really come away feeling like they did her justice either, which is strange because currently the bar for doing this character justice is, again, extremely low. And after giving it some thought, I think the reason this ultimately didn't sit right with me is that it is a perfectly representative culmination of this weird non-committal relationship that this franchise has with this character. It's not the lowest point in her story by any means. In many ways, they did everything right. But the fact that they didn't do anything demonstrably wrong and it still didn't work points to the disconnect which plagues this character. So to understand why a certified Pixel stan like myself is somehow not satisfied with a multi-episode plotline which finally gives her the screen time that she deserves, we first have to look at everything that brought us up to this point.
If only we had some sort of device that could stop them from... I know, I'm just messing with you.
As explained earlier, Pixal begins her existence in the show's 3rd season, primarily as a love interest for our lead, Zane. The relationship between these two is called P.I.X.A.L. I know most of you know this, but it's important vocab for the video, and I need everybody to be on the same page here. We've got so much video to get through. P.I.X.A.L for many is the highlight of this character. Say what you will about them, they are nothing if not cute.
We are not so different, are we? We are compatible?
Yes.
They are the sweetest couple on the show and very ace-coded. All of my princesses know how we feel about ace romances on this channel, so that is a pretty large appeal.
Be careful in there.
I will come back to you.
But even I am willing to admit that there is not much more meat on the bone here. The basic premise is that Zane sees not only another robot for the first time, but a robot woman, and completely short circuits instantly, falling in love.
Zane has an admirer.
Unfortunately for him, Pixal does not have any emotional programming, and so said love is completely unrequited.
Thank you for repairing me. I guess an old Nindroid like me is no match against the newer models.
This is just one of my primary functions. Gratitude is not required.
In fact, it turns out she's been infected by the evil programming of the bad guys, so she's actively working against him. And despite all that, Zane is compelled to help her and to try and get her to think for herself, which he does first by purging the evil programming in her system, and then by giving her a piece of the mysterious life force, which seems to give him his own human spirit. And while you might think this plotline is ripe for some cool introspection about how meaningful it is for Zane to meet another person like him, or how he had this whole process of discovering his own humanity and he's now helping someone else through that same process, the most they really do in any of the show to address all of this is this one line.
We're all different, but I don't feel so different around you.
Which leads into this devastating response.
I am not different. I am Pixal, the primary interactive external assistant lifeform, and your repairs are complete.
But the plotline is mostly focused on their vaguely justified romantic connection because he's a robot and this is a girl robot, so that means that they should get together. That's how it works.
Oh, now I get it. You've got a thing for that girl robot. Ah.
You can certainly extrapolate your own headcanons, which give this romance a little more depth. I certainly have. But let's face facts here. Boy robot likes girl robot is all there really is to it in the actual text of the show.
I'm Pixal, Cyrus's primary interactive external assistant lifeform.
And again, it's cute.
I was curious to understand why you are so different.
It is dang cute.
You are vital to the mission. And you are vital to me.
But it is also paper thin as presented.
Oh, robot love.
Giant robots? Sure, why not?
At one point, it kind of becomes about working together, maybe?
Our shared reflexes.
Work as one!
But again, it just sort of seems like an attempt to display how true their love is based on love.
As if we were made
to fight together!
And then at the end of the season, Zane reluctantly leaves Pixal behind to go and sacrifice himself to defeat, like, the devil.
Doomed ninja.
And then he comes back at the very end in a new and resurrected body because Zane is just Jesus in this show, I guess. You can put him up with P.I.X.A.L on the list of weird biblical allegories that we have covered on this channel. Anyway, that makes Pixal our Mary Magdalene mourning him at the tomb as he arises, and we get this cute line.
Are we compatible now?
That's our P.I.X.A.L plotline, but it also intersects with Pixal's personal arc of becoming human. An important figure to mention in all of this is Cyrus Borg, the sort of Steve Jobs of this universe, creating this incredibly massive tech empire, but also accidentally releasing a great evil in the process.
You were right. I should never have built here. You must go. He's listening.
This poor man goes through so very much this season.
I promise. I promise. A promise isn't good enough.
He needs a therapist for sure. Pixal is one of his creations, and once her allegiances to the Overlord are wiped from her system, her first inclination is to serve her creator.
You created me and gave me life. I belong to you.
She still sees herself as his property, and despite recently gaining free will thanks to Zane, she still doesn't quite wrap her head around the concept.
Yet, Zane saved my life.
And Borg, being the nicest guy on the planet, just has to sit her down and explain, like, the concept of agency.
You belong to no one.
Hey, you can do whatever you want. No, you don't have to be here if you don't want to be. And then it kind of ends up being a moot point through the rest of the season because they're working with Borg most of the time anyway, so like, and that's her character arc for the season. Pixal does not understand free will, and falling in love with Zane prompts that change in her understanding. It is a very internal conflict. I kind of wish we had a clearer physical manifestation of this struggle. I guess you could argue that the Overlord controlling her kind of functions this way, but that all is over before we even start the arc, so it doesn't feel like part of it. It is a very basic lesson with not much energy spent to try and explore it, and is a progression for a female character which is entirely dependent on a romance in order for it to play out, so that's great.
If you want to be with Zane, then you should be with him.
But at the very least, it is a character arc for her. There is a lesson for her to learn, and we see the progression of her learning it. Yay, good job. We did a storytelling. There's also this little side plot I should probably mention where she and Kai banter for control over this car, which is kind of fun. It gives us some interesting character interaction and fleshes out how Pixal might fit into the larger team dynamic a little bit.
That was close. I thought close was the objective.
But probably most importantly, it establishes a key characteristic of hers going forward, which is that she is very efficiency-minded and does not appreciate it when people waste her time.
I've taken control of the X1 remotely. You can't get rid of me that easily.
Figured this would be a good place to also mention the voice work for Pixal is absolutely fantastic, especially in Rebooted. There are just so many layers of nuance to this vocal performance. Pixal starts out sounding notably robotic.
You are Zane, a droid like me.
Both the way her lines are written and her emphasis and phrasing feel distinctly non-human. Once her eyes go red, there's this sort of evil drone-like quality added behind everything.
Your primary duty should be finding the Technoblades.
But once her system is wiped and that's gone, there's an additional layer of emotion added to her voice. The phrasing and emphasis still feels robotically stilted, but you can now hear the emotion backing certain words.
Where am I? Why am I tied up?
And this gradually increases over the course of the season, especially after the heart transplant.
A connection. I felt free.
And once she lets her personality shine through a little bit, the writing also loosens up.
You know, every car handles differently. Yet this car is worth far more than you.
But even then, her sarcasm is still so blunt that you kind of second guess whether she's being sarcastic. There's still lots of room for her to develop. And you'll see going forward that eventually that progresses to the point where the only real remnant of her robotic tone is a bit of a sing-songy quality and the syntax of her dialogue.
Oh, Dareth, hello. My memory now accesses the fact that you own this establishment.
The emotion, emphasis, and attitude all now feel perfectly natural, and she has her sass tone locked down to a science.
This thing has an enormous drill on it. Can we not just go under them?
Anyway, all this to say, Jennifer Hayward is doing a ton of heavy lifting in making this character charismatic and demonstrating her growth. Huge props to her across the board. Some may disagree with me, but I think they pulled this off well enough for an initial introduction. It's nothing too special, there's certainly room to grow and expand the character, but they didn't mess anything up. It might be a little bland, but there's a solid foundation here to build on. The only problem is they had no plans for her after this. This is not a foundation, this is all of the ideas that they had. Perhaps because the show itself didn't have a plan, Ninjago would continue to get renewed on a season-to-season basis for the next several years, with showrunners always having the threat of this season being their last one lurking over them. They would get the chance to do longer-term storytelling once the franchise was considered theatrically viable, but for the most part, the show would keep this contained, play-it-by-ear mindset until its 15th and final season in 2022. At that point, the brand, now established established as somewhat of an evergreen theme for LEGO, would shift into a new series, Dragons Rising, which is largely defined by its multi-season storytelling structure. But taking things back to Rebooted, with so much uncertainty surrounding the show's future, I can't say I blame the production for not having long-term story ideas for Pixel, but you know, you could also say that about all of the other characters, and there seems to be something about how they choose to deal with Pixel going forward, which seems particularly at a loss for anything to do with her.
Pixal, you're...
Scrapped. I know.
After last season's cliffhanger, the show decides to deconstruct Pixel altogether. Literally. As a robotic character, she leaves her body behind and moves into the role of Team AI, spitting out assorted stats and warnings for our characters to abide by during their missions.
Pixal, calculate escape scenarios.
Pixal? You got a girl stuck in your head?
She also serves to help Zane through an identity crisis this season. After his resurrection last season, he is unsure if he is even the same person anymore, and Pixel drops the real question of, well, forget about who you were, who are you now?
Who are you then?
It's a great plotline, doesn't really tell us that much about Pixel, but it's some good growth for Zane and results in our prescribed dose of Pixane moments to tug on your heartstrings.
I suggest you break out when everyone's at the big fight.
You mean we must break out?
Yes. Of course.
It does reduce Pixel, as mentioned, to that AI role, which seems like a pretty clear indicator that the writers don't particularly want to deal with her going forward. I suppose this is an understandable hole to put her character in if they were looking for a place to bench her before they might need her again. It fits her character archetype and keeps her present, but the problem arises once you realize what a blatant regression this is for her character. For someone whose introduction sees her finding the will to be human and utilize her agency for herself, to put her in such a limiting box for any extended period of time carries a sort of tragic undertone to it. There's a reason that fun team AIs usually evolve into humanoid bodies and not the other way around. And this keeps up for the next 2 seasons. Both seasons 5 and 6 mainly just have her doing the beep boop AI stuff. She's not even really a quippy AI. It's mostly pretty dry.
Picture recognition analyzing. Pattern discovered.
Skylar, who in many ways is Pixel's spiritual successor, introduced in season 4 explicitly to be a love interest for a different ninja, also gets shunned by the narrative in the seasons which follow her introduction, but the show handles it a lot better in my opinion. She simply isn't on screen, presumably off living her own life, running her fast food empire away from the main team, allowing her to keep her dignity even though the show declines to include her any further. Pixel, on the other hand, is forced to remain present, but also unincluded, actively demeaning her humanity in the process.
Be careful, Zane. It is foolish to believe you can outsmart him.
Not now, Pixel!
Skylar also gets the distinction of being a bit of a mystery mousecatool, a surprise ally who can jump in when the show wants to up the stakes or prompt additional excitement from fans. Whenever Skylar shows up in a season, it feels like a treat. Like I've splurged a little bit to get a Route 44 Diet Dr. Pepper from Sonic with all of my favorite add-ins, and you're just sitting in your car like, something a little extra to look forward to. She carries a weight about her because she is used sparingly. Pixel does not elicit that same response. She just feels like the world's biggest third wheel. Or 7th wheel? I've been talking through most of the yard work going on outside, but it is like, it's right here. Like, it can't take that long to do the stuff that's literally right next to this window right here. Right? Okay, well, it's not gonna stop, so we're just gonna power through. Sorry. And while looking at how underutilized she is, I can't help but wonder why they didn't do something more akin to Skylar. Why not have her live her life off screen? Just have her go hang out with Borg, and then you can go and visit her anytime the team goes to visit Borg Tower, which is not like too infrequently.
We come here a lot.
That way you don't have to deal with her constantly being around if you don't want her there. And while this seems like a no-brainer to me, there is a little bit of a perceived problem with that. It is common around the fandom to see Cyrus as Pixel's father. He's her creator and an authority figure for her in season 3. In future seasons, it seems that she particularly is concerned about his safety and well-being. However, this potential connection isn't even acknowledged by the show until season 10, and even then, Pixel isn't the one using the label.
Oh, Pix. It's your father.
Yes.
Borg still refers to her as an assistant in season 4.
My assistant Pixel.
And the only label I think is ever implied by Pixel is a creator and owner.
I belong to you.
My creator needs you too.
And even at the very end of the show, they still have Pixel referring to him as Dr. Borg.
Dr. Borg!
Pixel.
Seeing as Pixel's initial arc was her realizing that she does not belong to Dr. Borg, having her turn around and go back to him, especially when the show has yet to really establish a familial connection, might feel like reversal of her progress as a character as well. So they've managed to lock themselves in a catch-22 no matter what way they try to bench her. Either they have her stick with her decision to stay with Zane and kind of lose her humanity, or they have her retain her humanity off-screen but have her go back on her freedom-defining decision. And those are kind of the two options you've got. There's really nowhere else for her to go. She doesn't know anyone else. It's just Borg and the ninja. Of course, the best way to avoid this altogether is to actually include her in the plot in a meaningful way. That way she could stay with Zane and retain her humanity. Or perhaps you could include a plotline exploring her mixed relationship with Borg in order to give her a proper exit from the cast in the future. What does a relationship with a parent look like when that relationship is based on a technicality? When they did not raise you, but they still know you better than anyone else? What does communication look like under those circumstances?
I want a dad! Someone I can call Pop!
But you know, that's a little much to ask for from this show, so they're just stuck with this character that they don't know what to do with. We get nothing out of Pixel in seasons 5 and 6 before we kind of get something out of her in season 7. Pixel is stuck inside of a malfunctioning Zane, and we get to see her be genuinely frustrated.
Maybe what you need is...
Don't say a new binary power core.
a new binary power core. I'll be right back.
Wait, no, don't leave.
Before disappearing.
I'm sure you concur, Pixel. Pixel?
Now, technically speaking, that's all that's happening with Pixel this season. But once she disappears, a new mysterious vigilante appears to help the ninja, and it's revealed next season that this is, in fact, Pixel.
I am Samurai.
What? Are you serious?
How's that possible?
How can you be Samurai X? Totally called it! You did not!
Samurai X is the secret identity that Nia previously utilized before she unlocked her elemental power and became a ninja. So it does feel somewhat fitting in great superhero tradition for the title to be passed down to a new holder who can carry on the legacy. And this plotline actually addresses that setup pretty directly. The main focal point is Nia's whole feelings on the matter. At first, she is incredibly insulted that her work has been stolen out from under her without her permission, and she essentially positions herself as an enemy of this new Samurai X.
I know you're not my brother.
Nor am I your enemy.
But I'm yours.
But after a big confrontation between them, she sees that by holding on to her legacy, she's refusing someone else the opportunity to do good in the world, which is dumb.
Whoever you are, you have proven that you are worthy to become the new Samurai X.
It's a pretty good plotline for Nia, but notably, we don't really get any insight into the new Samurai X's feelings on the matter. Samurai X here is basically functioning as a mirror for Nia to bounce off of. A physical obstacle which forces her to confront her relationship with this thing that she's made.
You were me once. You know this. Yes.
Not really a character who obtains any sort of personal growth from this scenario. In fact, you could probably argue that if you consider Pixel the one in the suit during this fight, she almost seems out of character. Pixel has always been a little bit sassy when dealing with people who are obstructive to her, but never has she been the one who's just messing with people for the fun of it.
Maybe I'm Gareth.
For her to be this sort of petty, cheeky wild card seems wildly wildly out of range for anything that we've seen from her previously. She doesn't have many definable characteristics, but one thing we know for sure is that she values efficiency. For her to string Nia along on this little guessing game just seems so unlike her. You could argue that the lead up to her becoming Samurai X is perhaps the most frustrated that we've ever seen her, and maybe that explains like some snap that prompts her change in personality. But after her identity is eventually revealed, we don't really see her return to this sort of behavior ever again. So this, to me, does not feel like the writers utilizing Pixal as Samurai X, but utilizing Samurai X fully to support Nia's arc, and Pixal is just a convenient plot explanation for later down the road. None of these interactions read as something that Pixal has done once the reveal happens. I've talked about this before on the channel, but this also seems like just such a missed opportunity. If this story hadn't been shy about revealing Pixal's identity as Samurai X to the audience, this could have been a great plotline to explore her feelings, expand her personality, and develop a solid relationship between her and Nia.
Why don't you tell us who's really under there?
No.
The fact that we have a female character who created a secret identity in order to force her way into being included, who is now attempting to restrict another female character from taking up that same identity to force her way into being included, is such a compelling conflict. But the fact that we don't get to find out that it's Pixal taking up the mask means that this extreme hypocrisy Nia is demonstrating, the most interesting aspect to me, never gets to be highlighted because we don't get to know that it is hypocrisy. What we're left with is this new role for Pixal, which refuses at every turn to actually include Pixal. They've shuffled Pixal around to this new position, but I don't really know why, aside from they wanted a plot twist. Her identity is eventually revealed in season 8, and as cool as it is to have her back in a physical body, it is again done in a way designed to include as little Pixal as possible. Early in the season, it's established that Pixal has been operating as an AI for the team again, spitting out her usual stats and even bantering a little bit with Lloyd.
I could kiss you, Pix.
I don't think Zane would approve.
Samurai X has also been going around helping people on her own time. We again learn this through Lloyd's perspective. Then, toward the middle of the season, we get an episode where a virus infects a bunch of the electronics, affecting both AI Pixel and Samurai X Pixel. This forces Pixel to confess that she is Samurai X, so that the ninja are warned of her body coming to attack the team. This is before she goes offline for pretty much the rest of the episode. And I should also add, this episode doesn't have a particular focus on Pixel before this point. She is pretty incidental to the main plot going on. After the plot resolves itself, without her help, she has a line vaguely trying to explain why she kept her identity a secret.
I had to keep my identity a secret to protect those I cared about.
Lies, 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 lies.
Before hugging Zane. And that's it. She doesn't do anything this episode except get mind controlled. We do not get any insight on her opinions or feelings, and she doesn't really get to talk to anyone except for Zane. Great. I do not know why this is how they chose to do this reveal, especially when this is what solidifies Pixel's position as a main character, a member of the ninja team. From this point forward, she's supposed to be akin to someone like Wu, and yet we don't really get time to focus on her in her inaugural episode. It feels almost like an afterthought in the story. Somehow, we have given Pixel a complex plot line where she contributes to several other people's character arcs, makes a major life change, and separates herself from everyone she's ever known. And yet, the writers have somehow managed to give us no new information on who this woman actually is. Like, that's an insane level of writing acrobatics right there. It's crazy that all of that didn't even accidentally give us some interesting character development. Lucky for us, the rest of the season does have a little bit more for us to chew on. Most notable is this scene between Pixel and Zane, where we get to hear some of her feelings. Wow, who would have guessed? I didn't think they could do it.
There's nothing I've ever seen that would make me believe you could pull this off.
She's concerned that she was more useful as an AI and that her physical presence is somewhat unwelcome. And Zane is like, no, what are you talking about?
Was I more useful inside the computer?
What sort of question is that?
This opens a kind of interesting window into Pixel as a character, if only for a brief moment. Is this why Pixel left in the first place? Because she felt unwelcome on the team in general? Could this be the reason that she kept her identity secret? Because she thinks that her identity is intrusive? What in her life has led her to think that her being physically present could be a burden?
You can be honest with me, because I want to be a useful member of the team.
Your mission was important. I was not.
But of course, we don't get any elaboration on these ideas. The story just kind of treats it like a little bump in the road that we can just brush past. So it's all just left as headcanon bait for superfans like me. It's short and sweet, but it does do a good job of giving us like a little mini arc. Pixel is uncomfortable, Zane notices it, they talk it out, and by the end, Pixel's mindset has changed a little bit. Plus, we get our seasonal dose of cute Pixane.
May I ask you something?
You have half my heart. You can ask me anything.
Like, this is good.
I like having a body. But if you require my assistance in your headset...
The choice has always been yours, Pixel.
We also get Nia officially handing over Samurai X to Pixel, which takes up like all of 2 lines.
My suit! I mean, your suit.
It's okay, Pixel. It's yours now.
This could have been like a really cool little plot line where we connect together what happened in season 7 to these characters now, but I guess the bare minimum is fine too.
It's yours now.
And we get Pixel in a couple of action scenes this season, which is new for her. The show does seem to entirely forget that she exists in episode 7 before she magically reappears in episode 8, but hopefully that's not indicative of anything to come. So in season 9, Pixel has nothing to do.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
She is there, she is technically present, she is sometimes involved in action scenes, but she does not do anything in the story. You could write her out completely and not change a thing.
Where are Pixel and Misako?
Locked away in Cryptarium.
You'd think that in choosing to bring her back, they'd have thought up some ideas of what to do with her. But no, it seems like the only actual idea they had was to bring her back. That was the end of the thought process right there. And if you'll remember, they didn't even have that many ideas for the process of bringing her back.
I had to keep my identity a secret.
So it seems as if they have only moved her from being ignored by the team in her AI role to being ignored by the team in her in-person role.
It is one of the most useful, yet tragically ignored inventions in all of history.
Nothing has meaningfully changed here. It's almost an impressive lack of progress. In season 10, she helps out in an action scene, this time pulling a bit of a risky maneuver to help save Lloyd. So they've at least given her something to do, which is nice, more than we got last season. She also does this cool backflip, so you know. Actually, this proves that the writers are paying some amount of attention. She is fed up with the traffic in this instance, and so bails on the vehicle altogether. It's nothing new, but it shows they've recognized the one trait of hers that we meaningfully have, her focus on efficiency, and incorporated it into her new action-oriented role. Her temper has only grown shorter in allowing for leeway in wasting her time.
That's it. I'm getting out.
She now has more options available to her in avoiding inefficient situations and is more than willing to use them. Before, this looked like taking remote control of the ninja's devices, but now it comes in the form of her doing epic backflips over the freeway. It doesn't show us anything new about her, but it does at least show us consistency across various circumstances. It's at this point in the series that I find it instructive to take stock of where we're at. Pixel is a character with 2 defining qualities: her relationship to Zane and her dedication to being efficient and effective. Things that we already learned from her very first appearance in the show and which haven't really been expanded on in the 7 seasons since. She is both a member of our main cast and simultaneously not at all one of our main characters. She has had one full character arc in her life on screen back in season 3 and one meaningful moment which gave her character some sort of depth in season 8. Most plot points involving her are never actually about her. Most of her dialogue is exposition, and interactions with anyone other than Zane are both rare and kind of awkward to watch. Pixel is stuck in limbo, unable to step back and simply cement her legacy as a side character living her best life off screen, but is also unable to shine as any sort of a main character given the utter lack of emotion the plot allows us to see from her. The writers include her because they must, and they exclude her because they don't know what else to do. She is treated as human at their convenience and doesn't seem to have any sort of discernible direction going forward. This sucks.
Well, this is lame.
This is an awful state of being to be kept in for so long. Season 3 seemed like a prominent starting point, but in hindsight, it might have been the peak for her character. Even large character moves don't seem to have any sort of effect on her portrayal. If this character wants any chance at getting better, it feels like we need something even more drastic, like something to clear the slate so we can get some new ideas in here, like some sort of soft reboot, or in season 11, the show got a soft reboot.
Perhaps this is an opportunity to field test the new joint tactical vehicles.
A lot of people will say this is a bad thing. I'd say it's more of a neutral shift overall, but for the purposes of this video, it is a godsend. It's just so shiny. If this looks insane to you, it is my effort to recreate Pixel's Samurai X look, and that was the intended effect. The show getting this much of a shakeup gives us our first real leap forward for Pixel.
That is most welcome news.
It seems like they've finally found a concrete function for Pixel to fill in the team other than just an additional fighter. 2 roles, actually. Pixel is now our Team Grease, making fun vehicles and base upgrades for the team, and is also our emergency pull cord. From this point forward, Pixel is our designated escape hatch for when our ninja get in over their heads or are a little extra irresponsible. She keeps them from getting burned alive and always comes up with building defenses and new weapons right when the team needs them.
Pixel thought it would be wise to incorporate several new defensive measures.
Pixel's efficiency has been amplified to the extent that it is now its own running joke. She gets so much work done prepping things for the team that it defies logic at times. This also coincides with a complimentary running joke: everyone ignores Pixel.
Did anyone know this was here?
No.
In a sense, this has always been true, but they've brought it out of the meta-narrative and into the script proper. Partially to joke about how the ninja are off their game and unobservant at the beginning of the season.
This is the real thing.
Whoa! How did we miss that?
But also, again, to stress how inhumanly productive Pixel is. She created a whole new Samurai X cave under the monastery and no one noticed.
We've been working on it for the past 6 months.
I didn't even notice any construction!
She wrote personalized instruction manuals for each of her inventions, which everyone chooses to blast past. They've taken the one trait of hers we had, her efficiency, and chosen to play it to such an extreme that we actually get some decent entertainment value out of it. You know, flanderization, but in a good way. Cranking one of your character trait knobs up to 11 is actually a viable move to make your character more interesting when what you're working with currently is a pile of underdeveloped nothing. And it leads to some interesting results. If you have a hyper-efficient character, the natural position to put her in is to face her with incompetence. The jokes write themselves.
Did they even bring the luggage?
This results in her becoming a pretty regular straight man for the series, finally giving her a clear way to slot into a plot line where she's interacting with a portion of the team other than Zane. That's huge for her.
Better have it, Pixel!
All that being said, this isn't groundbreaking or anything. She is still a fairly blank slate, and if she is supposedly supposed to be a main character like the wiki claims she is, that's not gonna be good enough. The story still doesn't know who she is when she has to stand on her own. And I know that this is the case because in the second half of the season, we have a bottle episode focused on Pixel, and it is abundantly clear that no one has any idea what we're doing.
I am beginning to wonder if there could be a reason for our failure.
The basic plot is that there's a big monster, the The ninja are gone, so Pixel has to face it down by herself. Most of our screen time is action, and Pixel doesn't really seem to have many discernible feelings about the matter. If anything, this episode has Wu go on a little mini arc. He's lost all hope at the beginning, but over the events of the story, he is inspired by Pixel's perseverance, and by the end, he's all ninja never quit. Yay. I find it strange that again, we have declined to give Pixel any sort of arc or character moment given the opportunity. Instead, it goes to Wu, even though this episode was obviously pitched as a Pixel-focused episode. She's the one reading the title out to us.
The Kaiju Protocol.
The show decides that she is going to potentially sacrifice herself, which
Pixel, it's too dangerous.
is Zane's thing. Like that's definitely Zane's thing. That's Zane's music.
Have to get out of here. Now!
Like, I get that it's a good value to be selfless and everything, but like this feels particularly copy-pasted. And then when she doesn't die, she gets this moment, which...
You are amazing.
Does that mean you are no longer angry with me?
I can't express to you how wrong this feels. Like, again, this is a Zane thing. Like, he's the one who has trouble reading emotions. He's the autistically coded one.
Everyone knows cuckoo birds are not indigenous to these forests.
I get that Pixel can be a little naive about certain topics, but social cues are not one of them.
Did I catch you at a bad time?
This better be good.
The last time Pixel didn't pick up on a social cue is when she didn't have emotions.
I am not different.
She's good at this stuff. She regularly uses sass to express herself.
What is going on in there?
What is going on is I'm trying to unscramble Zane's neural pathways so we can go rescue Cyrus Borg.
What do you mean she didn't realize that Wu was worried for her safety and not mad at her for going off book?
Does that mean you are no longer angry with me?
There's so little character to stick to, you'd think it would be easier not to get it wrong. Anyway, end of the season, we get a cute little P.I.X.A.L hug.
Zane!
Add it to the list of adorable P.I.X.A.L things. Again, doesn't really do too much to deepen their relationship, but man, is it cute. And that's the season. It started off pretty well. We hit a bit of a rough patch, but would you believe me if I say we do actually manage to recover? Season 12 gives us a P.I.X.A.L side plot, which evolves into a full Pixel-led plot line where she stays in character, displays palpable emotion, and aids in the character arc of someone other than Zane. I mean, that sounds pretty good, right? Ninjago Confidential is a much beloved episode where Zane attempts to do detective work more effectively by pretending to be a 1940s film noir detective.
I was fishing for leads, but for now I find myself adrift on a sea of dead ends.
Pixel is not amused.
Who are you talking to? And why are you dressed like that?
I quite like seeing her at odds with Zane. I think any amount of friction within P.I.X.A.L not only gives it a little extra depth, but goes to prove that the writers understand the differences between these characters. And true to her one character trait, the point of contention is that Zane is being inefficient.
According to my analysis, 100% of successful detectives wear trench coats and hats while narrating their thoughts.
So, I guess that checks out.
Every part of me is annoyed.
It's a fun, quippy time until Zane gets kidnapped and Pixel teams up with Milton Dyer, who is the guy that they were trying to find. Long story short, he accidentally created a sentient video game which is primed to take over the world, but he doesn't think that that's possible.
But that's impossible. Unagami isn't alive. It isn't real.
And so Pixel, as a walking, talking piece of code, has to convince him that, yes, I am actually a real person, and it's possible for there to be other things, like me.
I assure you, Unagami's emotions are just as real to him.
I like this. It builds on Pixel's one arc that we've gotten, realizing that she is a valid human, and here shows the growth that she's gone through over the years by directly having to defend that humanity to a skeptical audience. I also appreciate how organic this feels. This isn't something that they had to come up with to give Pixel something to do. This is something that would have had to happen regardless. Zane would have had to have a similar conversation if it were Pixel that were kidnapped, and it all contributes to the themes and plot of the season.
They are living beings, like yourself. and they deserve freedom.
That's how this should work. This plotline also sees Pixel be scared, confident, frustrated, and all sorts of other emotions in order to prove her point to Dyer, which is great because it allows us to actually sympathize with her emotional state. She has some cool actions, some solid laughs, and she's carrying the whole plot here.
Is the mechanic doing your detective thing too? This is just weird.
It is genuinely pretty good. Season 13, she just kinda isn't there.
I'll stay here with Misako and Pixel.
I'm not really all that mad about this one because they go the Skylar route of just having her exist off screen. The team goes on a trip. She's not on the trip. Feels like we could have had a line of her saying, "I'll be here to protect Ninjago while you're gone," instead of just, "We're all going on a trip," and then Pixel isn't on the trip.
It looks like we're gonna see it in person.
But whatever. They didn't have any ideas for her this season, so they left her out. That's fine. I guess I should mention the island, which is sort of a prologue to the next season. Pixel is only in the first episode. She stays behind while the rest of the team goes on a mission and talks with Lloyd a little bit.
Have you been up all night?
Yeah.
Cool. And that takes us right into season 14, in which Pixel does have some presence. She's allowed to go on the mission this time, so that's fun. She has made the new vehicles for this season, as per usual, and everyone is very impressed.
How did you build this so fast?
There's not much else going on with her for most of the season. She is around to fill out team dialogue and be mildly amused that Zane is pretending to be a pirate.
Let me guess. You downloaded thousands of terabytes of movies and novels on sailors and pirates in order to prepare for our journey.
Yarr!
At the beginning, we do get this small moment where she's fighting this giant kraken, and we're treated to another fake-out death.
I was worried.
If you haven't figured it out, this show really likes its fake-out deaths. But what's more interesting to me is her trying to negotiate with this giant sea creature.
Please release me before I am forced to resort to physical measures.
She did a similar thing in the kaiju battle back in season 11.
Please desist in your course of action.
I don't hate this, especially coming off of her plotline in season 12, her wanting to give everything the benefit of the doubt that it might be sentient and capable of reason kind of makes sense. It's definitely a bit naive of her, but I think it's a reasonable soft spot for her to have. We have another sort of moment of ignorance just before they leave on their mission, which implies that Pixel is unaware of the social superstition of calling something unsinkable.
And is practically unsinkable.
You know what happens when you call a vessel unsinkable, right?
Which also prompts the question, like, does the Titanic exist in the Ninjago universe?
I must apologize, the ship sinking was not in the brochure.
Anyway, I also find this a reasonable blind spot for her to have because superstitions are illogical and so aren't worth the brain space to her. I also kind of like how the team decides not to tell her about it.
Oh, well, it doesn't sink, of course.
Like, while she is probably the smartest one on the team, she is also the newest member, sort of the little sister of the team dynamic who must be shielded from the pessimism of the world. This is the only point where we see that dynamic play out at all, so it does feel a little out of place as is, but I wouldn't be opposed to the show exploring this further if that's a direction they wanted to go in. Season 15! Boy, there's so much going on this season. Zane has turned off his emotions because he was too sad and they don't think to give Pixel any sort of thoughts on the situation. She builds lots of new vehicles for the team, complete with manuals, which they once again ignore.
No time for manuals, Pixel.
We bring back the running joke of Pixel doing things inhumanly quickly.
653 hours of work, to be precise. I will have the vehicles ready shortly.
This gets resolved in an episode which reveals it is actually these little robots that she made.
You didn't think I built everything on my own, did you?
Which I hate. I personally think it would have been hilarious if this simply never went explained.
Can't believe how fast they mass-produce these commemorative hot air balloons.
Like it was her unofficial elemental power, efficiency.
When things don't make sense, I just ignore them.
But no, instead it's just this army of robots, so we don't actually know how much she is doing. Like, is she personally being that productive if these guys are just doing everything for her? It's her one character trait. Why would you put it into question? Anyway, we have a fight scene where she is very easily defeated. It doesn't make any sense. The power scaling in this show is just so whack. The second half of the season is where the meat is at. Doomsday scenario. We have a Zane fake out death. Shocker, I know. And Pixal has to get him through the city to Cyrus Borg, the one person who might be able to fix him. Along the way, she has some epic action moments and recruits the help of some newly reformed bad guys.
Hey, look, there's Borg Tower!
We get more of her being annoyed at the ridiculousness that surrounds her.
Ignore him. He requires repair.
They get to the tower, and it seems like they might not be able to save Zane. Oh no! Surely this isn't another fake-out death, right?
I'm sorry, Pixel.
But then we get this big monologue from Pixel saying goodbye to him.
I do not know if there is anything after this life for beings such as you or I. But if there is, I will find you there.
I'm not crying, you're crying!
We even get our first Pixane kiss, a very bittersweet one, but still. And she is ready to soldier on despite her grief. But wouldn't you know it, it is a fake out death! Pixel's voice is just so magical that it gave him life. It gave him energy. And don't question, it's very poetic and cute.
All I know is I heard Pixel's voice and suddenly I remembered.
And they do their jump hug. It's so cute. These episodes do a great job of centering Pixel and her struggles and perspective, just like the ones in season 12 did, which is great. But I do have to stress here, still not a character arc. She goes through no changes during this string of episodes. She faces challenges and we see how she feels about them, but there's no lesson to learn here, which is fine, but I feel like this displays that there isn't too much curiosity here about this character, about who she is. They don't really know what lessons it would be appropriate for her to learn, what problems you would have to confront her with in order to prompt self-reflection. We know she has a boyfriend, meaning she would be sad if he were hurt. We know she's a capable fighter, so we can give her some action. We know she is efficiency-minded, so maybe we put her in a plot line where there's a bunch of goofy characters being inefficient, and then we could get some jokes out of it. It's the same playbook they've been doing for a while, but they've bunched it up all together here, so I guess there's that. The climax has her doing some more epic fighting. She hugs Lloyd, so
thanks, Pixel.
That's someone other than Zane. And if you didn't get enough Pixane, they have sprinkled in a little bit towards the end, just for good measure. That is Pixel's run in the original series. It's a mixed bag. Despite myself being a super fan, I do 100% understand anyone who does not care for her. She is pretty flatly written most of the time, only has a couple of plot lines to her name, none of which really deepen her on a personal level. We have had 13 seasons worth of time with this character at this point, and we haven't really learned much about her aside from the same things that we learned in her first season. Any character traits outside of her efficiency and attachment to Zane depend on you reading in between the lines, and even then it is unclear if any of those are intentional. And I don't think it's wrong for people to want the story of the show to do some character work if they want them invested in this character, rather than being forced to dig through several layers of purposefully non-committal and or accidental subtext in order to maybe get to care about this character. And of course, there's the small matter of Pixel being a character created for the express purpose of being a love interest, to the point that they literally did not know what to do with her for 3 whole seasons after her introduction, because that was the sole role they had envisioned for her. Whenever they are unsure of how Pixel would react, they simply slot in Zane's character and call it a day. That is obviously not going to be an appealing entry point for a lot of people. In many ways, she is a character who has long overstayed her welcome. She is a piece to the puzzle which no longer appears to fit anywhere. And that makes me sad. It seems somewhat cruel to continue dragging her along behind the narrative, refusing to either let her loose or bring her in. Which is why it didn't bother me when Pixel didn't show up in Dragon's Rising at first. The writers did not see a place for her within the current story, so they chose not to include her. And I can respect them for that. The show did occasionally hint at her eventual return down the road, and when the marketing for season 3 came out, it was pretty quickly determined that now would be the time. A season 3 introduction into the show. feels fitting for Pixal. And this gave the decision a certain amount of weight. Not too much, but something. They waited in order to bring her back, which would imply, at the very least, that they have some sort of plan for her. After all of the other characters with delayed entrances had some major character developments and plot contributions. Cole has entered into his family man era, Jay has flipped into a show villain, Wu has been the basis of a large series-long mystery. Surely, if they've waited this long to bring her back, they have somewhat of an idea of what to do with her. She has been dead weight in this franchise for far too long. If you're not gonna drop her, you have to revive her. And believe me, there's a lot you can do to revive her. No, the fandom should not require you to dig into the nuances of the meta-narrative in order to get a basic understanding of who this character is. But if the Dragon's Rising writers want to make Pixel a character worth their time, that is exactly what they should be doing. It is their job to flesh out the cast, to give us interesting reasons to be invested in their personal struggles. They've done this with most of their other characters so far, and so if they're gonna include Pixel in the cast, they've got to give us something to chew on. And in my opinion, the best way to do that for Pixel is to look at how the show has treated her thus far and take that treatment out of the meta-narrative and into the show itself. If Pixel is a boring husk of a character who has been repeatedly rejected by the events of the story, don't fight that depiction. Run with it. Pixel's story is a bit of a tragedy if looked at through a particular lens. She is a droid created to be an assistant, a glorified receptionist who just so happened to get caught up in an insane series of events. She was wrapped up in the plans of the Overlord, essentially acting as a spy in order to obtain information, not even necessarily against her will. She had no will to begin with. It's not until she gets hacked by the Technoblade and later upgraded with Zane's heart that she begins to gain consciousness and free will. While actively trying to figure out how being even remotely human works, she's put through a series of traumatic events surrounding the people she's just learned to care about, and despite this, comes through on multiple occasions to save them and the team. She's barely figured out how choosing to do something and having the ability to be happy works, and suddenly her strongest tether to this world decides to sacrifice his life for the greater good. Not to mention, the point of failure was his heart, the piece of equipment that he intentionally compromised in order to keep her alive. It is not unlikely that she blames herself for his death. This affects her so much, she can't even bring herself to attend the funeral. Now at this point, she could exit the story altogether, but she doesn't. After Zane rebuilds himself, she presumably stands by him as he gets kidnapped and is literally torn apart for this decision, ripped from any connection she has to the physical realm, likely conscious for all of this, only to wake up and learn that Zane, one of the only people who actually knows her, has lost his memory.
Who are you?
I'm Pixal. A friend.
Remember, she has just barely started to understand what it's like being human, and she is immediately ripped away from an essential piece of being human, the physical realm. She helps Zane get out of the situation, knowing that there's no hope for her, personally. Zane does manage to save her, but she is now stuck in another person's system with no way to affect the world around her and no way to make her voice heard to anyone but Zane. A person actively going through an intense identity crisis, hallucinating and ignoring what she tells him a not insignificant portion of the time. That's gotta do stuff to your head. She somehow manages to get him through this emotional roller coaster only to be stuck in this strange limbo for years, and she doesn't ever complain. She seems happy about it. And I don't think that's because it's just that great a situation in there for her. I think it's because she does not understand that she has any other options. She doesn't think to question these circumstances. She hasn't lived long enough to understand her body as an essential piece of herself. This phase of her existence gives her a very distorted sense of community. She is continually helping and learning about this team of people that Zane lives with, being subject to all all of their discussions together, getting to know them on an extremely intimate level. And yet they constantly forget that she even exists. She is not allowed to join the group, she is only able to observe. And so she does this. She goes on being ignored by the only people she really knows for the majority of her life. And when does she decide to exit the situation? Only when it is clear that the team needs additional help. Why does she hide her identity from the world? Not because she needs to protect those closest to her. Those closest to her are already in constant danger. It's out of habit. The world has taught her that being an isolated member is required of her, and so she continues this pattern of denying herself existence of her own volition. It is just an automatic impulse at this point. But she has made the leap into the physical realm again, most likely to prioritize saving her father.
Come on, snap out of it. He needs us.
Even this level of asserting herself, even if only to help others, is met by outright hostility by a person it is fair to assume is an idol of hers. And even though Nia seems insistent on figuring out her identity, it seems as if Pixal is not even an option she is willing to consider. It's worth mentioning that Pixal takes on this defensive role even when she has nearly zero experience with combat firsthand. She was not built with any kind of fighting in mind. Her original design sucks at fighting. This is canon.
Your heart improved my fighting ability.
She has little experience controlling her own body, let alone a giant armored mech, but she does it anyway because she sees the team needs backup, and no one else seems to be prioritizing the high-profile hostage, which is one of the only people on Earth she actually cares about. She eventually reveals her identity to the team she's been assisting for ages now. Again, she's lived with these people for the majority of her short life on this earth, and yet they do not know her. All of this gets into her head. She second guesses her decision to assert her physical presence. She thinks that perhaps her re-entry into the world was a mistake. Her life has taught her that she is able to be most effective when unseen by the world around her. She has to be reassured that her decision to exist is okay with the people around her. This is a person whose sense of internal identity has crumbled in on itself completely. So she throws herself into her work, commits to being the most useful member of the team, the most proactive, the most prepared. Again, there is nothing keeping her here. She could hang up the helmet and go home, live a normal life, try and get in touch with the human piece of herself again. Her dad would certainly welcome her back, and Zane wouldn't have a problem getting to Borg Tower to visit. She has no elemental power beckoning her to participate, no debt of gratitude to these people, no rich familial ties keeping her here. She barely even has friends. At any point in this story, she could very rightfully choose to exit out of this life that she was not built for and bears no responsibility towards. She does not have to be here, but she stays because she does not know anything else. Because as hard as she tries, she has not been able to shake her base programming as an assistant.
I am to assist. I assisted.
This line is the core of her character. She is a disposable, optional part of the universe. A side character who is aware that she is a side character. A being who compulsively keeps her head down and hands busy so that she can justify her own existence to those around her. To the point where doing something solely, actually, for herself seems something akin to a fantasy. Pixal is a Cinderella archetype.
Hey, look at you. You're Isabellarella.
Oh, you thought you could avoid the girly Disney property half of this channel? No, you fool. It's all connected. You gotta watch everything, baby. Shout out to all my adult male princesses who subscribed for the Ninjago content. You're the real ones. For those of you who made the mistake of skipping the Prince Charming video, Disney's 1950s Cinderella is my comfort character. I never tire of seeing adaptations of the Cinderella story, and I am convinced that this is the reason that I have latched onto Pixal. Even though she is not particularly well defined in show, her very few story beats and very little characterization fall just enough in line with this movie that I have overanalyzed since childhood to allow my mind designed to fill in the gaps without even thinking about it. Let me break it down for you. Pixal has a relationship with a father figure who is then suddenly taken from her, and is replaced with an abusive household she is forced to serve, greatly diminishing her sense of free will. Thanks to a gift of magic, which in some versions of the story is sort of supposed to represent Cinderella's mother, but in Pixal's case is very directly coming from her father, she is able to free the shackles of her servanthood and do things of her own choosing for once. During her short night of fun, she falls in love with a handsome prince who is definitely asexual, and goes to great efforts to speak with her again after she makes a purposely timed and painfully bittersweet exit in the dead of night. There's a blue glassy plot device which is brought to her in order to solidify their relationship, and from that point forward, she moves into the castle, so to speak. She joins the ninja team. Look, it's not a perfect one-to-one, but the prince's glass slipper is destroyed by our stepmother figure in the climax, so some of it is one-to-one. The story then kind of loops back in on itself for a second go-around at this point, kind of like Disney's Cinderella, weirdly enough.
Unravel Cinderella's happily ever after.
Arguably, Pixal's years of abuse come after the happily ever after, with her stuck in Zane's mind purgatory for a good long while, very directly restricting her freedom. Mia's butchering of Zane's repair acts as her destructive breaking point, and Samurai X as the magical dress, which makes her unrecognizable to her family even when around them, which would make this scene her dance with the prince at the ball.
You appear to always show up at just the right time.
You could say I'm hardwired that way, Nindroid.
And this scene, the symbolic returning of the slipper to confirm that Cinderella should not return to her old life. Our slipper stand-in is even mentioned here.
You have half my heart.
There's a focus on her learning to exercise her right to individual autonomy. They both fulfill more of a homemaker role, which permeates their character throughout the series, but inevitably take on more action as things progress. Both have a more quiet voice and demeanor with a bucket of sass behind it.
Did you just tell yourself to hold on?
Maybe I should interrupt the music lesson.
Both don't really have friends, but are uniquely kind to the animals around them. I guess maybe that's why they added in the mini P.I.X., is to be the mice. I still hate them.
May I introduce Mini P.I.X. 7?
They ain't no Jacques and Octavias, that's for sure.
Happy birthday!
Both have time travel plots, which weirdly imply that a good chunk of their story is no longer canon. So all of this is real easy to miss if you're not looking for it, but I guess the similarities that are there caused my brain to instantly have a reference point to relate to and understand this character. I know who this is. I've known her my whole life. This is why I think Pixal should wear her hair in a bun. This is why I am convinced that her formal wear would 100% be a poofy princess dress. This is why Cryptor as a sibling figure to Pixal seems obvious to me. You gotta have an evil stepsister, but maybe the stepsister is redeemable. I guess what I'm saying here is Cryptor is Anastasia and Mindroid is Drizella. Y'all tracking? Cinderella is the best template that I see for Pixal's character, and obviously the one I would suggest pulling from, but that does get a little more difficult moving forward. We've already been through the Cinderella tale like twice now, and so at this point, no one really knows what happens. Sadly, there is no Cinderella 4 to guide us. All we can really pull from at this point is Cinderella's characterization and themes as a story, and try and incorporate those into whatever plot we have moving forward. Characterization is the easiest thing to carry over across plot differences, so I'd obviously recommend holding on to those. I think the similarities are already there, but there's always room to strengthen them and use them as guide poles going forward, keeping up things like her empathy, heartbreakingly constant resilience, people-pleasing impulses, and connection to animals. But there are other ways to take inspiration from the Cinderella mythos if you're looking for ideas. ideas. One of the main themes of many adaptations is this concept of illusion, especially within the magic of the night. Cinderella is able to completely transform herself to the point of unrecognizability, whether magically or not, as a key plot point in the story. This ability to appear how you wish and not how society insists on categorizing you is an important cornerstone of the story. One way to nod to this with P.I.X.A.L going forward might be to give P.I.X.A.L a cloaking device and have her use it frequently. It seems like a no-brainer ability to add to her tool belt and would keep in the spirit of the character.
New color.
For someone who literally has her manufactured purpose baked into her name, the ability to fully control how she telegraphs herself to the world would be something revolutionary. Back when season 15 was airing and we had the whole P.I.X.A.L making things unthinkably fast running joke, there was this theory floating around that maybe P.I.X.A.L got the time elemental power somehow. And yeah, that idea is pretty out there, but again, I think this kind of taps into the Cinderella archetype. A lot of fairy tales have important time constraints placed on them, but Cinderella is one of the few which doesn't measure in more naturalistic terms like sunsets or dying plant life. It's the last stroke of midnight. It's been that way for as long as the story has had a glass slipper. It puts specific emphasis on precise, exact, watch-kept time measured in hours and seconds rather than days or years. The clock is one of the story's key symbols that comes to mind when you think about it. Time is a main antagonist of the story.
Oh, that clock.
A looming presence and a source of magic in its own way. This is why it isn't that weird to me that they did a Disney DVD sequel about time travel. I'm honestly surprised there aren't more Cinderella adaptations that include some sort of time shenanigans. Like, you have strict magical rules in a story which is highly associated with clocks. It was only a matter of time before time travel entered the meta.
What you doing? We're time traveling. Can I come? Why not?
So while giving P.I.X.A.L time powers may be a sort of random turn of events in narrative, I think it kind of backdoors its way into making some amount of sense, at least symbolically. A character who has had so much time taken away from her, being given control of time back in a literal way, has a sort of poetry to it. Those are just a few examples, but there's lots more room to explore and inspiration to be had by viewing P.I.X.A.L through this lens, and maybe this isn't the angle that you want to go with. That's fine.
What, you think we should have more Bulgarian folk-related elements? Oh, less. Less Bulgarian. Okay, wow, I thought we were on the same page, but no.
But if you are taking P.I.X.A.L seriously as a character, you should have some sort of lens that you're viewing her through. Some core idea of who she is, what stories she's here to tell, what characteristics she represents in order to guide what it is that you do with her. So, what did they have planned? What did Dragons Rising do for her big return? They did a freaking Phineas and Ferb musical cliptastic countdown.
It's the Phineas and Ferb musical cliptastic countdown.
Shall we do what we do best?
Now, it wasn't a literal clip show, but it might as well have been. They do cute flirting and romantic monologues and hand-holding, which we've had since season 3. Both of them combining into a unified fighting machine was also done in season 3 and season 4. P.I.X.A.L backflips like in season 10. They do the jump hug started in season 11. We have epic P.I.X.A.L action and Lloyd hugs and P.I.X.A.L caring for a malfunctioning Zane while dealing with comic relief villains all exactly like Crystallized. Not to mention a Nindroid self-sacrifice fake out, which is so old hat at this point that I feel like everybody I've talked to about this groaned when they heard that music start up. Her return into the show is a little bit of a repeat because Zane was found in the exact same way. Mysterious tech pod in an unexplained location. She can't even get that to herself. The only new thing that we do with P.I.X.A.L in this show is have Nia hug P.I.X.A.L.
I can't believe it!
So that's what we brought back Pixal for, is to have Nia hug her and then never talk to her again. Every single moment just felt like a slightly altered version of a moment we already got from her. Down to even just specific lines feeling like rewritten versions of old ones.
I do not understand, Zane. My processor does not compute.
That voice, Pixel, was yours. I heard Pixel's voice.
I am Pixel.
I don't care.
You should. You are attacking my friend.
Who are you?
Pixel. And you should step away from my friends.
And this might not feel like a big deal to you because most of our Pixel content was rehash anyway. But first of all, like, this was her big return. They made us wait for this. There was build-up for this. I think that implies a little more expectation than like her relative stasis in season 14. Second of all, even the subpar content that the old show gave us at least gave us something a little bit new for every season that she was actually involved in, even if it was just something kind of minor. In season 3, Pixel is given a character arc and a plot line where she interacts one-on-one with a team member other than Zane. In season 4, we get her being a supporting character in Zane's personal non-romantic character arc. In season 7, we have her assisting in a character arc for someone other than Zane, even if it comes with the caveat that all of the characters and the audience don't actually know that it's her. In season 8, she becomes a physical persona again, and there's that little scene where we get an actual character deepening insight. Season 11 gives her a running joke and a solo episode. Season 12 gives her a prominent support position in a random side character's arc, this time acting as herself. Again, that might be a small step forward, but it is something. It's improvement from season 7. Season 14 sees her interacting with the team as a fully integrated member for the whole season, not just a singular plot line. And then season 15 gives Pixel her own plot line in which she must overcome an obstacle. It does have to do with Zane, and it doesn't really involve an arc, but it is a full-on multi-episode plot line about her and her struggles, capped off by our first P.I.X.A.L kiss. We also get her showing some physical affections for someone other than Zane, this time happening to be Lloyd. Every step forward relies heavily on the previous steps in the process, but it at least always offers something new, even if it isn't great. There is so much room to do something new with this character. So many micro steps forward that you can give us. Give Pixel a supporting role in a main team member's character arc other than Zane as herself. Give her a focused plot line which doesn't have to do with Zane. Heck, give us another romantic character arc. It wouldn't be strictly new, but it would at least be a second character arc. Presumably it would be different enough, assuming that the growth that is prompted from this character arc is different than the last one. I mean, the dream would be a focused character arc unrelated to Zane, but I'll take whatever you got. But no, we have a plot line, not even a character arc, where she and Zane do all of the things that they've already done before.
So we continue doing what we do best.
Like, we even had a perfect opportunity to give her a new running joke. Pixel has been in this pod for the last couple of years, asleep for all of the merge, and does not realize that any time has passed.
We just saw each other this morning.
That's such easy joke material. Have her constantly behind, not really knowing what's going on, but just going with the flow. The team constantly forgetting to fill her in and then just waving off what seems like huge revelations to her. They have Zane do this little mini intro where he introduces all of our new characters.
And I can't forget Wildfire.
And I think they use this as an excuse not to have to stop and do introductions every time Pixel interacts with someone she hasn't met before. But to me, that just seems like great potential joke material that they have gone out of their way to squash. In that first fight, just imagine the team doing introductions while beating up the bad guys.
My name is Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, and you being a platypus, you can't talk to tell me you're I'm just gonna call you Steven.
That would be some great stuff. Alternatively, if you wanted to take this seriously, you could analyze what that kind of time distortion might do to you. You missed out on years of your family's lives and just have to carry on like nothing happened? That's messed up. But instead of any insight into Pixel's thoughts or feelings, we get a bunch of exposition about stuff that's been established for a while now.
The storm you remember is something we now call the Merge, a mysterious event that combined all the realms into one. apparently orchestrated by Master Wu.
In most shows, Pixel would be like, the merge, and Zane would be like, it's complicated, I'll catch you up later. And then this info dump of things anyone paying any amount of attention already knows would happen off screen. And then we could make room for more fun character interaction or new plot to further things along, but not here. We apparently need a flashback to remind us what the inciting incident of the show was.
I realized I had witnessed the merge.
It also absolutely kills me that Pixel is obviously a great mentor figure for both Eren and Sora, and they do absolutely zilch with it. Sora, the team's new default Grease, meeting the team's old default Grease. Eren, self-conscious about not having elemental powers, meeting the one other member of the team without elemental powers. Seems like there's room for some meaningful interactions between these characters, but I guess not. We brought back Pixel with a bunch of fanfare, only to get a clip show episode of her greatest hits before, and light spoilers for season 3 part 2 here, she's exiled from the plot again! She and Zane go off to explore the merged realms together so that the writers don't have to deal with them for our next batch of episodes.
That's it? You're just gonna thwart and run?
And if all we were going to do is retread old territory before getting rid of her again, I mean this in all sincerity. Why did we bring her back? What was the point? It's not even like she's plot important. You could cut her altogether and all you would do is save time. It feels as if they have only brought her back out of obligation. There is absolutely no shot that she would be a new character written into this show if she weren't already a part of the old show, because she has no function. You know, there was a pretty popular theory going around a while ago that Pixel actually was the administrator that's talked about by Zane.
They speak of a leader called the Administrator.
This mysterious head of the administration supposedly pulling all of the strings of the place. And I didn't particularly like that theory. It would seem pretty out of character for Pixel to be heading up a organization so purposefully inefficient and vaguely nefarious.
The only thing they are effective at is gross incompetence.
And also that she would be out and about in the world in close proximity to our other characters and not at least reach out to Zane. I'm sure there are ways you could have made it work, but it just seemed like a counterintuitive direction to me. But honestly, I think I would have preferred that to what we got, because at least then she would have been plot relevant. It would have solved an ongoing mystery the show set up. It would have given her something she's been doing all this time and information to contribute to the team. You know, like we've done with all of our other characters. But Pixel, by virtue of waking up just now, has nothing to offer the team except for an extra hand to help fight, which honestly, you didn't really need. The one thing she conceivably could have offered, a fresh, untainted perspective on things, isn't even brought up at all. She doesn't go on in the story to do or find anything the team relied on. The story has nothing new to give to her as a character, and she, as a character, has nothing new to give to the story. So what are we doing here? They had 2 seasons of time to think up something, anything, for her character to do. And the thing they landed on is for her to go away. They also messed up her character design. I'm sorry.
You look beautiful. I guess you all look beautiful. Thanks.
You'll notice Pixel looks a little different in these clips. I'll start with the things I like, because there are things I like. First and foremost, I respect even the effort at giving Pixel a redesign. It is long overdue. That alone is worthy of celebration. I also really appreciate that they have committed to the purple color scheme. In a show which has previously been so paranoid about losing the attention of its young male audience by depicting anything girly, hesitating to put Nia on set boxes, making her and Pixel's action identities as androgynous as possible to avoid suspicion. The move to make Samurai X predominantly purple is a big swing that I appreciate. I like the idea of giving Pixel eyeshadow in theory. In practice, I am a bit split on it. The main thing that's wigging me out is that that is not how you typically do eyeshadow, like eyeshadow typically goes on your eyelid above your lash line. This is all under her lashes next to her eye because it's not under her eye either. It's weird. It is how I have done my eyeshadow for this segment to demonstrate that it looks a little atypical. Anyway, I also like Pixal's refined face markings. They give her face a nice contoured look, akin to the mask that she used to wear around. I think all of that is great. That being said, like, this is still a visual mess, right? The first thing sticking out to me is that it's too much white. I get that they're taking inspiration from her face markings to make the suit, but making her suit color the same as her skin color just makes the armor look like some sort of bug exoskeleton. It makes it look all weirdly homogeneous. I don't like it. I also don't know why we can't just choose between gold and silver. I mean, the decision is essentially already made for you. Her hair is silver, so just stick to that. Honestly, if they wanted a different metallic color to center her design, I think black is the better answer here. It would make her hair pop a little bit, and it would give Sam X more of a stealth aesthetic. It would also match the sort of thick eyeliner look that her eyes necessitate. I think it would be a good style for her. I also don't like her silver arms, especially with the red hand combo. It makes them look like they're red hot, like she's gonna do the 1,000-degree knife challenge or something. The patterning on her suit just feels like the epitome of you know that meme about modern superhero suits? It just feels over-designed. Of course, if you know me, you know I am personally pretty disappointed that we didn't get a new hairpiece. Everyone else has gotten one now, and Pixel is just stuck sharing hers with Nia. That's not fair to either of them. With her whole appearance being redesigned, I don't know why they wouldn't take the opportunity to give her a new hairdo. Even just a differently styled ponytail. Maybe one with some curls. Or, my preferred option, give her a messy bun. The default Lego bun hairpiece is definitely too clean for this. You'd still want some bangs to help frame her face. Even Talk's got a new hairpiece. I don't know why we can't spare one for Pixel. And that just leaves her face. This just doesn't look like Pixel. To me, the biggest standout is her lips. Pixel's lips were always extra accentuated because even though they weren't colored, they were lined, meaning they appeared generally bigger and fuller. And not only have they gotten rid of the outline, but it also looks like they've made them smaller on top of that. That combined with the slightly enlarged eyes and the proportions of her face just feel so off. Anyway, I have made another Photoshop mix and match set so we can try and see what's going on here. It's weird that I've done this twice on my channel and that it's only ever been for Pixel. But whatever, we're doing it.
I'd have 2 nickels.
So here's Pixel in Dragon's Rising. I have made a couple of alterations. I think the main problem is the lips. The lips are too small. Look at the gap. Look at the size of that gap. That's ginormous. Compared to this, that's a lot. So I have made the lips bigger. I have given them an outline like they used to. And for this one, the lips will keep their new purple lipstick or whatever. So close your eyes real quick while I do that. It's just, it works better if you don't see the transformation because it makes it look jarring. So if you close your eyes and then reopen them after I click. I'm over explaining this. And close your eyes. Okay, so that looks more like Pixel to me. It's improvement. It's not quite there. I think the white lips are that iconic for Pixel that if we change this, it is going to look immediately better. Close your eyes and open them. That's Pixel, right? Like that looks like Pixel to me. So I've also done one where I've taken away the eyeshadow. If you want to close your eyes, there we go. There's Pixel without the eyeshadow. That still looks weird to me. Maybe you think it's the eyebrow notches. I have gotten rid of the eyebrow notches. If you want to close your eyes, there it is. Still doesn't quite look like Pixel to me. There's with the eyeshadow and with the eyebrows. Like it's still, I think it's the lips. We're gonna move towards my preferred Pixal look. One thing that I know for sure I would like to change back on Pixal, and I know this isn't a Dragon's Rising change, this has been the case for a while, but I would like the eye glow back. Boom. I know that technically the eyes still glow, but it's not really the same because it's not glowy. It's just still bright in dark scenarios. And it's not as fun. Every ideal version of Pixal has eye glow in my book. What I really want to figure out is the eyeshadow or the eyebrows really, is changing that back going to be better? Are any of these changes better? Close up the eyebrows compared to, I don't know. Let's try getting rid of the eyeshadow. Like, that does look more like Pixal. I think let's do no eyeshadow and filled eyebrows. Yeah, like I suppose that looks the most like Pixal, but having had so much stuff on her face before, it does feel a little empty now. Filled in eyebrows with eyeshadow. I think I kind of don't like the eyebrows without the eyeshadow. At first I thought that all of those points too close to each other would be too much, but I kind of think the eyebrows and the eyeshadow kind of work together. And maybe you don't think that the white lips are the key here. We can try with just the purple lips. It's just a very, especially when you make the lips bigger, it is a lot of purple. Pixal, but we want to keep the purple because it is now also on her suit. So we go back to old Pixal in a lot of ways, but we keep the purple lips versus going back and just adding the eyeshadow. And I think I like the version where you just add back the eyeshadow. I need the white lips. And again, if you want to keep the eyebrow notches, which I don't actually hate, I think you've got to do the eyebrow notches with the eyeshadow. Without the eyeshadow, they look kind of weird on their own, even if you have purple lips. Especially if you have purple lips. No, I did not like that at all. Okay, I think this is probably my ideal, but I could honestly go either way on the eyebrow notches. I think you need to get the white lips back. They're so iconic. Anyway, that concludes this segment. Let's just hammer down a couple of things that we can build on if they want to go forward with Pixal's character. 1, Pixal is the most feminine character in our cast, at least of the original cast. There's an argument for Sora because she's pink. I think that's the extent of it. Good news is, I think the writers are aware of this one. They did give her that additional makeup, so I think they got the cue. In an action-oriented show, I think that's a rather unique quality to have, and I think is probably the reason I latched on to her early on. Just spitballing here, but if you want to incorporate this energy into like a role for her on the team, you could give her some mom energy. She can be some powerful emotional support, the one with a purse full of endless solutions, and the one herding cats when no one else will. There's places you can go with that, and I think it feeds off of her pre-existing character. Also, maybe you could let one of your female writers try their hand at writing her. Just a thought, might help, might not. I don't know. Just gonna put that out there. 2, Pixal is hyper competent. We know this one. It's been established for a while. But there's plenty of interesting room to explore here. Have her come up against an obstacle she can't overcome and explore the insecurities that pop up there. Explore her need to be hyper prepared at all times. Maybe there's a bit of paranoia there. Or, as mentioned earlier, a self-confidence problem where she feels she has to prove her worth to the team. Honestly, just anything to help explore the why behind the main character trait we have for her. 3, Cyrus Borg is the ace up the sleeve the show has yet to use. The old show made their relationship just vaguely good terms enough to skate by without notice, but I think giving these two a plotline where they actually explore their relationship to each other is a slam dunk. It brings back a fan favorite character who can present some high-tech solution to their current problem. Borg is always great at giving some exposition, and it gives you a nice cozy message about the importance of family, which is a great kids show moral. Maybe it's it's even like a work-life balance plotline. They run into Borg and suddenly Pixel feels this pull to stay with him rather than the team. She's been away from him for so long because she's been working and she lost him in the merge because of that. You gotta make up for lost time. I don't know, that sort of thing. 4. P.I.X.A.L is a ticking time bomb. They are cute. Don't let anybody try to tell you that they're not. But they're not especially deep. And something remaining that shallow for that long is never a great sign in real life. There's a little bit of a codependency vibe that gets accentuated when you do things like, I don't know, have Zane repeatedly stress how utterly lost and incomplete he felt without Pixel. Make it so when Pixel learns how much time has passed and how much the team has changed, she, for some reason, only wants to spend time with Zane. I'm definitely not saying that you need to blow up the relationship, but I think addressing this in narrative would be both helpful and entertaining. Give them something to disagree over and force them to work through it. Have them recognize this codependency before it becomes a problem and take extra efforts to find themselves. Choose to go on missions apart from each other and come back stronger. You know, anything to just address the issue. 5, and this one is definitely a super long shot, unlike the other ones, but for a show which likes itself a plot twist, I think Pixel is primed for a double agent twist. I think she's really the only character with the absolute discipline to pull something like this off over an extended period of time. First, you have her turn evil. It would give you the weight of a main character leaving the cast without, you know, like actually having a main character leave the cast. It gives you P.I.X.A.L angst. We already know that she is a formidable threat. And then when it turns out she was playing the bad guys the whole time, you get this epic hero moment and a Pixel ex machina which actually feels earned. Everyone seems to forget this, but her roots as a character are technically as a villain, so I think this would be kind of a fun way to sort of bring her character full circle. And 6, there is something going on with her and Lloyd. I'm sure you've caught on throughout the course of the video, but the show has a habit of packing in these little moments between Pix and Lloyd. Now, this might just be a byproduct of Lloyd being the main character, but I kind of think there's more to it than that. Of the core cast of like the Ninja plus Pix and Wu, all of these characters were introduced in the pilot episodes, except for 2, Pixel and Lloyd. No matter how much time passes, they are the late additions to the squad. And I think that could and maybe does give them a little bit of a unique bond. I know everyone loves their RBG siblings, but I think these two have the potential to make an excellent sibling duo. And I think the moment you can trace it all back to is this one right here.
Whoever you are, thank you.
Thank you? Samurai, whoever you are, stole my suit!
And saved my life.
The first appearance Pixel ever made as Samurai X, the thing which announced her existence to the world and blew her cover, was her rescuing Lloyd, an act which he alone seemed to register the weight of, and which you can tell engendered an immense amount of respect. This is even an action which gets sort of symbolically repeated in season 10. I think there's something to work with here, and I do have a sliver of hope that the writers see what I see here, because they had Lloyd very enthusiastically hug Pixel twice in the new episodes.
Pixel! Where were you? Pixel! Oh, you're back!
So if they wanted to do that, I would be down to do that. I need this friendship, please. Obviously, you could also give Pixel a plotline solidifying her friendship with any other member of the team, and that would also be a huge step forward. I know a lot of people would land on Nia and Pixel being the go-to relationship to develop because of the Samurai X connection and girl power and all that. Kai has a dynamic with her in season 3 you could build off of. Cole is a level head that she could probably relate to pretty well, and she and Jay would make a good contrast. I already talked about how mentorship with the kids would work pretty well. Point is, you have lots of non-Zane options. You just gotta choose one. Look, you may be at a loss of what to do with this character because she's pretty poorly defined by the story up until this point. But that's not a restriction that's an invitation. As long as she likes Zane, is efficient, and gets a little sassy when faced with incompetence, we can do whatever else you want with her. Is she an allegory for burnout, a femme fatale spy archetype, a naive toddler, a hopelessly lonely spark of goodness, a loner who begrudges working with the team, an overlooked superpower, an overhyped citizen in over her head? Any of these are options on the table for you, and would be an improvement from what we have currently. She deserves some thought put into her. She deserves another character arc, a friendship with someone other than Zane, a relationship with her dad, and certainly this year's Pixel cake. As mentioned earlier, we have a bit of a tradition on this channel where every year we will attempt to make a Pixel cake for my birthday, and most years we're not terribly successful.
This is the spookiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I know we did one last year that came out somehow not looking like a nightmare, but that one was just a stencil. It does feel a little bit like a cheat. I think we can do better. That being said, I thought that an honest to goodness Pixel cake would kind of have to wait until next year, because this year my birthday was pretty busy. I was gonna be traveling with my family, funnily enough, back to where I went to college, so I could reconnect with my roommates. But there were a bunch of other events going on. We had a pretty jam-packed schedule. It didn't really seem like there would be time to make a proper Pixel cake. So my plan was just to take my little Pixel minifig with me on my trip and put it on top of whatever dessert we happened to have on my birthday, post a little short about it to my channel or something, just to keep the tradition going. But little did I know, my mother and my old roommate were secretly scheming with each other behind my back.
Past Pixel cakes have been not good. My mom's friend is a baker, and I reached out to her and asked, can you help me make this cake for my good friend who's gonna be in town for like 2 days. So that's where I'm off to right now. We're gonna hope and pray it ends up cute, and if not, at least it'll be a fun surprise for her.
Apparently my roommate has a family friend who makes professional cakes out of her personal kitchen and was very excited about the challenge of making a Lego minifig cake. So she went to help make it, documenting the process, coordinating with my mom to deliver it to our hotel when we would be there.
Look how good this cake is! Oh, shadows. The cake officially survived the drive. This is the most stressful thing ever.
There's a knock on our door. I have no idea what it could possibly be. Turns out it's a massive multi-tier Pixel cake. That's what it is. My mom starts recording so that she can get my reaction. You might be wondering why I'm not showing that to you now. It's because she wasn't actually recording, so you get to enjoy this video of her realizing the mistake as she tries to stop recording. Anyway, we slowly ate as much of it as we could over the next couple days, and my roommate got custody of the leftovers.
Pixel, you're
scrapped. I know.
It was delicious. It had chocolate, strawberry, and funfetti layers because they were too scared to ask me which flavor I liked the best. Just look at it, it's my girl, and she's sitting up and everything. So many thanks to Michelle Webick for the amazing birthday cake. I have no idea how I'm gonna top this next year.
And here's Scroll Drive Online as the diodes spike up by Metal Spine. I can see where you're coming from when your receptors blink and your servos hum. It's overclocked, I don't know my name. There's something wrong in my core mainframe. Don't you know that I'll take it to a higher place as we meet on the floor and we interface.